You know, like the social things. I assume. It's well, yeah. And
Your voice smells.
I didn't know that. Like I think right
Yeah. No, let me check. Let me work it.
Okay, so right now. Okay, 2 items out.
Okay.
Yes.
Usually I use,
Yeah.
Okay.
When you finish it, say this will be approved update.
Oh, yeah.
That might be.
I'll try.
Anything close to that will suffice. If it doesn't, go fine. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Everyone, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Jerry, call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Here.
Mr. Fish,
Here.
Mrs. Irish Glass here, Mr. Yankee,
Here.
Mr. Richmond,
Here.
Mr. Spencer.
Here.
Thank you, Jerry. We've got 3 sets of minutes to approve. The first being from our last regular council meeting dated November 9th, 2022. Any changes or additions?
I have one, Mayor. On page 3, regarding ordinance 2022-66. I recall we all passed the ordinance, but it has ayes, none, and nays, all of us.
Okay, change the vote
Oops.
No.
Thank you, Steve.
Revisionist history.
Okay, copy and paste job.
Okay, with that.
There's one other, there's a spelling error on page 2, under the reports for roads and safety. It should say, committee did not meet on November, so it did not met on November.
Okay, with those 2 amendments to the minutes, do we have a motion?
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Councilman Richmond, second by Councilman Yankee. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
November 30th, special council meetings would have been for your interview sessions. Do we have any changes or amendments to those minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
And we have a motion to approve by Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Richmond. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
And that leaves us with December 1st special council meeting for the same purpose as stated above. Any changes or additions to that set of minutes?
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion approved by Councilman Richmond, seconded by Councilman Yankee. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Okay, that leaves us with any resident in the audience wishing to comment. Do we have any residents wishing to comment this evening? I believe everybody's here to witness the swearing in of our newest council member, so I don't believe anyone's here. You can if you want to. It's gonna be a no on that one. Next is report from mayor and other elected officials. Officials, I'm gonna start first and go, I don't really have much of an update since our last committee of the whole, last week. So everything I kind of related there kind of brought you up to speed. With one caveat, I did email all of you as well as the Parks Commission. This Saturday, we are doing Wreaths Across America at Hogsback Cemetery. So everyone in the audience know where Hogsback Cemetery is? Beautiful little cemetery off of State Route 87, just west of Chagrin River Road on the north side. Little drive goes down. It's kind of, you can drive by it and not notice it.
Yeah.
But Wreaths Across America started out with a band by the name of Moral Worcester in Harrington, Maine. He started as a poor young man and made his money making wreaths. And he became very wealthy. And year after year, he found himself with a surplus of wreaths. And he remembered a long time ago, he had visited Arlington National Cemetery for winning a prize, an essay contest when he was a young child. And he remembered so many good things about it. He took the extra wreaths and went to a back part of the cemetery that just does not get a lot of foot traffic anymore, but still obviously houses veterans. And he started placing the wreaths each year in this less visited part of Arlington National Cemetery. And this has exploded into an effort that is worldwide and includes all 50 states. Believe hundreds in Evergreen Cemetery in Chagrin Falls are going to get wreaths as well. Robin and Kathy Schwind, you might know if you see them around Hogsback. They're also, or Robin works at Chagrin Hardware Store, guy in the overalls. I think everybody who's been there would recognize him. They're kind of the caretakers of Hogsback Cemetery, and they're behind this effort. So I'm going to be there Saturday morning, 9:30. And we are going to say just a few brief words. There are veterans buried there from the War of 1812, from the Civil War, and from World War II. So there's a total of 5, and we will be laying 5 wreaths, and then they will skedaddle to Evergreen where their effort continues. So just a huge worldwide effort started by this gentleman by the name of Moral Worcester. So anyone from Parks or council members who are able to attend, it'll be brief. But it'll be worth your time. I think you'll enjoy it. So with that, that's all the comments I have. Are there any questions for me? Okay. We'll move on to reports. I see Mr. DeWater's face up there first, so we're going to start out with Service Director Ted DeWater. Ted, what do you got for us?
I do not have a report tonight, Mayor.
Okay, no report from service. Any questions from Mr. DeWater as we turn up the volume? Okay. Thank you, Ted. Next, we'll go to Mr. Kolarski.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have is the applications we made to Ohio Public Works Commission for some funding for fixing or resurfacing Jackson Road, a portion of Jackson, a portion of Chagrin River Road. Looks like we may be successful with that based on a preliminary scoring for one or both projects, but we'll know more in January. So just wanted to let you know that.
We'll take that good news. Thank you, sir. Anything else to report?
No, that's all I have. Thank you. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. You as well. Any questions for Mr. Kolarski? Mr. Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report this evening and just want to wish everyone a happy holiday.
Thank you to you as well. Any questions for Mr. Kowalczyk in his capacity as building official? Okay, Prashant was not able to join us this evening for personal reasons. And let's see, Chief Wyatt.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report as well, other than what was mentioned at the Safety Committee meeting. Happy holidays to everyone.
All right, to all the professional staff, thank you for checking in with us this evening. Happy holidays to all of you, and you can check out. Under appointments or confirmations, we do have one. So I'm gonna ask Jeanette Irish Glass to step in front of the desk with me. We will swear you in. But not that I don't think you're able to do this without. It does make it a little bit easy. So very excited and honored to swear in Jeanette. We of course did this on your confirmation council. And then this is the ceremonial version today for the family. And so there won't be any, we don't need to sign. Already got the signed copies. So would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Jeanette Irish Glass,
I, Jeanette Irish Flat,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances of
of the Village of Moreland Hills,
the Village of Moreland Hills,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of council member
discharge the duties of council member
of the Village of Moreland Hills,
of the Village of Moreland Hills,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
during my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
So help me God.
Help me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think someone has a camera, I'd have to take a picture.
You guys.
The old guy camera, phone. I thought you could be right up front.
Oh, okay.
Everyone else
In front of Mr. and Mrs. Garfield.
The portrait, yeah.
Yeah.
Shape the football game, I'm like you.
That's for you.
All right.
Just wanted some answers. Christmas.
As we always love to tell the family, we are more than excited to host you throughout the rest of the meeting as you listen to us. It's very rare that people stick around. You're more than welcome to.
Before your family does, could you introduce them to us? I'd love to know.
I'll start down here. This is Dylan Glenn. He is Megan's boyfriend. Megan is my oldest daughter.
Hello.
This is Olivia, my youngest daughter,
Hi, Lily.
and Cornell, her.
Us three are-
Catfish, but he's everybody.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. It's good.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It's very nice.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thank
You have a
you.
great evening.
You too. Happy good meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really pays off.
Communications, petitions, or claims for which we have none. That brings us to reports from committee. We'll start with roads and safety, December 6th, and for that, we'll go to Councilman Fair.
All right, most everything on here, we talked about ordinances tonight. So the only things I would add to what the gentleman didn't say is, let's talk of a 6 o'clock camera on Hiram Trail, which will be paid for by the police fund, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. A few ordinances on sewers and drainage, we'll introduce later on. There was one big note that service director mentioned that we were going to have to spend probably about $375,000 next year on a garbage truck. So I don't know, I'm assuming that'll have to get in the budget. And then we had a visitor, the chief of the Chagrin Falls Fire Department visited to go through with us the contract, which I need to talk about now or when it's time to do that, I guess. And that's, the only other thing is, we did, a few of us took the opportunity to go visit the skating rink in Lakewood to look at their solar panels, just to see what that whole system looked like. But then I saw a note from the mayor that it's gonna be a little tougher because the payback is so long, but I guess that'll be another discussion. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. If I may piggyback off that, the the figure you quoted obviously is accurate for the garbage truck. We are in the midst of doing another study. Last one we did showed private prices, private contracts per household was $22 and we were at 17 in house. So we're looking to see if we're still competitive, and that was pretty competitive. By my math from Orange, it's $5 an hour cheaper, $5 an hour cheaper. Excuse me, $5 per house cheaper per month. So that study's underway. Ted's looking in to see what kind of numbers we come up with, and we'll keep you posted on that. So I just wanted to mention that, Tom. Thank you for letting me interrupt your report. Okay, that brings us to facilities on December 6th as well. Councilman Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. The Facilities Committee met on December 6th, 8:30. I think the minutes are self-explanatory and don't have anything to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Councilman Richmond? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
BZA and Planning Commission met on December 5th, and for that, we're going to go to Councilman Yaki, who chaired that effort. Sorry, the wrong tab. Second.
All good? For the BZA on December 5th at 6 p.m., we had two applications, one application for a generator variance that was granted. And for the Planning Commission, we had four applications, one for a garage addition, one for a master suite, one for an addition renovation, and one for a new dwelling, and all passed unanimously. Any questions?
Questions for Councilman Yaki? Okay, thank you. We'll keep you on the floor here and ask you to give us a recap of the November 21st Parks Commission meeting.
Thank you. The minutes will stand for themselves. The only thing I wanted to highlight is October 7th for next year is Head for the Hills, so mark your calendar. Well, another thing I want to add about it, Hermes offered for us to be part of this event to be part of their racing series. Instead, it brings in on average another 30 to 40 registrants who will participate through the series. And the winner of the series, they make a quilt out of all the shirts from the events in the series and give that to the winner of the whole series. So we always struggled with kind of advertising outside of the village, so this is going to be a big lift for us.
That's great. With that news from engineer Filarski, assuming we do get some serious awards and we're able to tackle a large portion of River Road, that's going to obviously present some hardships for us.
Yeah.
I think at that point we pick up the phone and talk to the Metro Parks and beg them to allow us to do something.
Right.
But hopefully it all works out and time's up. We wanted to. Any questions for Councilman Yaki? Okay, if not, we'll go for our diversity inclusion, which met on November 16th. And to that, we're going to get an update from Mr. Anna.
Thank you, Mayor. Trying to find the roster of the commission so that I can get the title, the names right on the chair, vice chair, and secretary. But the meeting was sort of the initial meeting of the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, and involved a broad discussion of the duties and functions of the commission under section 160-102 of the village's codified ordinances, which council, of course, is familiar with. It includes evaluating village policies, practices, and activities, engaging residents and businesses with the approval of council and the mayor, advising the village on strategies and events and forums that might improve outreach and communication, developing and supporting educational materials and programs for residents that support the commission's goals. Thank you. And essentially looking to accomplish the charge of the commission, which is to study the impacts of racism and other discriminatory actions and beliefs, including implicit bias in Moreland Hills, and to formulate recommendations to address those impacts and increase engagement and inclusion within the village. So all of that led to a broad-based discussion of what some of those concepts mean, what implicit bias means, how the commission might go about undertaking that study and getting their arms around the subject matter. And some of the measures that the commission is considering include gathering some materials from the village in terms of policies from the personnel policy manual, from the police department. I think those two in particular were maybe the focus areas, and HR in general, so that they can look at them and start to think about how they implicate questions of diversity and inclusion. They also were brainstorming various types of resident engagement activities or functions that they might want to talk with council and the mayor about putting on to try to gauge the experience of the community with regard to these issues. And that was a pretty robust discussion, probably between an hour and a half. And so they will be receiving documents before they schedule their next meeting, which I believe is going to be in January, hasn't yet been scheduled. And they hope to review some of the documents that they've asked for prior to that meeting. In the sort of more structural, procedural realm, we reviewed Open Meetings Act issues and public records issues, and how those issues come up as they do their work and what kind of restrictions that places upon them in talking about this in groups or separately, and what it means in terms of their communication by theoretically text or email, and the fact that those are all public records. And then as the ordinance requires, they elected officers. They elected Lori Uragdi Eiler as chair, Todd Steele as vice chair, and Franzetta Turner as secretary, who will be preparing the minutes for that meeting and future meetings.
Any questions for Mr. Hannah?
Just a quick question about the meetings. So it sounds like they've elected to meet more often in quarterly, because if they're gonna meet again in January, or was that just to get going, or what were they thinking?
My sense is, I don't think there was a specific discussion. They didn't lay out a schedule for the year, but I think that the idea is probably that they may meet more frequently early on, and then the requirement, of course, is that they meet not less frequently than quarterly.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for that, Bill. Approval of bonds, contract plats, we have none. And that brings us to ordinances and resolutions. I'm going to start out with ordinance 2022-67. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and the clerk of council to enter into an agreement with the Paul Suburban Volunteer Firemen's Association for the provision of fire protection and emergency medical services and declaring an emergency. This goes to Mr. Fish, and Mr. Fish, if you remember, we did have this table, so I think we need to make a motion to move from the table. Okay, so we would start with that.
Make a motion to approve the table.
Second.
Oh,
Do we have a motion to remove it from the table by Councilman Fish? And seconded by Councilman Yaki.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Black. Yes. Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Okay. Just to catch everybody up, that most of you guys were at the meeting of the whole, but David wasn't, so just a few things. So we had the fire chief come in. We asked him a couple of questions. First, why did the budget increase so much? And so the understanding is that this contract used to be a yearly thing, and now it's every 3 years. So that's their chance to update it. So they had put a 3% increase in over the last few years, which did not cover the bill, and probably because EMS. So the adjustment is $205,000 for the start of this new contract, which is overall, that's shared by 6 different communities. There was one question which we talked to Bill about, which was the word contract was changed to agreement all throughout the contract. And so he said that was fine. They don't maybe need the same thing, so no issue there. The next question was, since the budget increased overall by 12%, why did Moreland Hills Creek increase by 15.3%? So the calculation isn't as complicated as we thought. For EMS, they do 50% based on population and 50% based on the number of calls, and they compare it to the other communities, and they divide it based on that. For fire, it's 50% home value and 50% number of calls. And in Moreland Hills, our population basically didn't change, it increased by 10 people. The home values are up by 10%, but our calls for EMS were up 17, fire was 18. So now we are 29.6% of the overall contract is being footed by us, which is the biggest number. Chagrin Falls is about 24, but they're only paying for EMS because they own the fire department belongs to them. So that was everything. I think with that, everybody was pretty comfortable with numbers at that point. So at this time, I have to make, I think, a motion to suspend the rule.
Second. A motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Fish, seconded by Councilman Yaki. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Arterman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yeah.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'd have to make a motion to pass the bill 2022-67 and declare an emergency.
Well, I just need to make a motion to pass.
We're gonna make a motion to pass? Okay.
I'll second.
There
We
you
have a motion to pass by Councilman Fish, seconded by Council President Spencer. Do we have any discussion or questions?
I just had one question, man. I'm sorry, I didn't see this when Chief Dugan was with us or before. And while we've talked, I've absolutely been impressed year to year over, since I've been here with the capable and caring service that we got that we get from Chagrin Fire. I was just looking at the numbers, and when we have, so our new amount to start out with is 567,623.05, and then a 4% increase in section 1, 2, in section 2 and 3. It says at the beginning of each of those other years, the annual cost shall be increased. But one thing I noticed is in year 3, we're actually paying 4% of the 4% increase.
Yes.
Is it supposed to be cumulative versus just paying 4% of the year we start out with in each of the next 2 years? Or is it supposed to be cumulative? In other words, paying 4% of the 4% increase in addition to?
Goes up 4% every year.
Yeah.
Right, but the difference is if you don't do it cumulatively, it's $908.20 less. In other words, if you look at 4% of 567 and change, that's 22,704. Okay. Now, if you add it, so one way to look at it is, okay, so let's do that same computation and add that 22,704 to the next year. But that's not what's happening here. Instead, we're adding 22,704 in 2024, and then adding 4% of that. So in other words, again, it's cumulative rather than. I'm just wondering whether when we say the annual cost shall be increased,
Well,
and that annual cost was our initial annual cost, is it supposed to be cumulative versus just that percent of the end? Does that make sense? Well,
I mean, I understand the question, but I've never seen a contract that isn't that way. If there's a cost escalator, every contract I've ever signed it's a compounding effect on the cost because it's the way inflation operates. And so if you have an inflation rate of 4% this year and 4% next year, the 4% compounds the prior 4%.
Except when I represent tenants and leases, and then I tell the landlord that if we get cumulative increases unless it's spelled out cumulative increases. I just come from that mindset, so I just wanted to, I was just trying to look at the language to see whether the annual cost means the annual cost increased by 4% or just the original annual cost. But if Mr. Hannah and everybody and Mayor and everybody else is, no, that's the way it's always been, that's the way it's supposed to be, then that's fine. I just noticed
So if I might, I think that the language, unless it's said, the way it's written now, the annual cost is increased and then the annual cost is increased by an additional 4%. I think it describes compound interest. I think that if it referred to an additional 4% of the 2023 base year or something like that, I think in that case, then that would be the result. I think the way this reads, it works through to be a compounding effect. I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, right?
Yep.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-71, an ordinance designating an individual to attend certified sunshine law training on behalf of the newly appointed public official, which would be Mrs. Jeanette Irish Glass, and that goes to Council President Spencer.
I'm actually going to pass that to Councilman Edelman.
We traded. Before.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We go to Councilman.
So, for example, like we are operating under sunshine laws. I'm sure they described that to you. Requires us to have open meetings, and Sherry's allowed to attend the training for you. So it's your choice whether you think yes or no. But I would also encourage. I've done training that they hold them a couple times a year. It is very valuable. It's up to you, but I've enjoyed the trainings that the auditor's office put on. So then I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Emmerman, second by Council President Spencer. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes. Move fast.
Second.
Motion to pass by Councilman Emmerman, seconded by Councilman Richmond. Any discussion?
Just a comment, Mayor, if I might.
Sure.
I did share with Councilwoman Irish Glass the training that Mr. Hannah had given us earlier in the year. I believe it was May. Because I found that was very useful and relevant to our situation and included sunshine law information. And I think, and I suggested, although it's obviously the Councilwoman's decision, that she run through that, and if she has any questions, she could speak with Mr. Hannah, or if additional training was desired, that she could seek that as well.
Great. I think Bill's a great start. You did a good job.
Thank you.
So we have any other discussion? Yeah, we have a motion and a second. You call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-72, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept a perpetual drainage easement from Jeffrey C. and Wendy Z. Davidson for the installation, maintenance, and repair of a storm sewer and appurtenances upon the property known as PPN 913-14-016 and declaring an emergency. This is going to Councilman Emmerman as well.
Yes. So the two that are later for him,
The two that are later for him, you're up.
the regarding storm sewer
I see it now.
and drainage, yes.
So for this one, there's an existing storm sewer pipe that goes through this property as part of the drainage and sewer program. We're supposed to remove that and replace it. It's a pipe that is in disrepair right now, but for whatever reason, we didn't have the village did not have an easement on the property when this subdivision was first built and this drainage pipe was placed down. So to do the work, we need to get the easement. So that's what this one's about. For that, I'll move to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend by Councilman Everman, second by Council President Spencer. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, move to pass.
Second.
We have a motion to pass by Councilman Emmerman, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any questions? Okay, Sherry, call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Before we go on to the next two, I'm going to introduce myself for the next two. So do I just say silent and abstain, or the best way to do that for the next two?
Yeah, you just announced that you're recusing yourself,
Yes.
right? I think that you will.
Ordinance 2022-73, an ordinance amending chapter 971, quote, erosion and sediment control, end quote, of the codified ordinances to conform to the conditions of the village's OEPA, general stormwater permit, and declaring an emergency. This goes to Council President Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I talk about the ordinance, I would like to just put on the record that I apologize to Councilman Richmond, since I neglected to sign in any legislation. And it was no intent of any harm, so my apologies.
No offense taken.
Ordinance 2022-73 and the next one, which I will also talk about when assigned to me, are related. These are ordinances that ensure that when we get a new permit from the OEPA, the Ohio EPA, to be able to operate within erosion and sediment control, that our ordinances are consistent with what the permit tells us we are allowed to do. From time to time, what happens is the permits, the wording is changed or the conditions are changed, which requires us to update our codified ordinances. And this applies to our service department as well as any contractors that we hire through the help of our village engineer. So with that, I will make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. We have a motion to suspend the rules by Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Yaki. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes. Move for passage, please.
Second.
We have a motion for passage from Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Richmond. And any discussion or questions? Sherry, call the roll, please.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-74, an ordinance amending chapter 973, quote, comprehensive stormwater management, end quote, of codified ordinances to conform to the conditions of the village's Ohio EPA general stormwater permit and declaring an emergency. This goes to Council President Spencer as well.
Okay, so this one is 2022-74, and this is the same principle, except for the wording is applying to our chapter 973, where there is also relevant direction when it comes to comprehensive stormwater management as part of our stormwater permit. The prior one was referring to 971. So again, a different part of our ordinance, but the same principle applies here to ensure consistency. And with that, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Fish. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Move to pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for passage from Council President Spencer, again, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any questions or discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fish? Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-75, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Mutual of Omaha, provision of dental coverage to the village employees and declaring an emergency. This goes to Councilman Yaki.
Thank you, Mayor Fritz. These three ordinances are all related and they are renewals of the insurance for the village employees. So the first ordinance 2022-75 authorizes the mayor to renew or enter a contract with Mutual of Omaha for dental coverage for village employees. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Yaki, seconded by Council President Spencer.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yeah. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Move for passage.
We have a motion for passage from Councilman Yaki, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any questions or discussion?
Just one question on this one, and about the same question on the other two. Any material changes, cost or benefit wise from prior year?
That I did not have all the details on. Knowing the village, I'm sure that the best option was taken.
Yeah, it's my understanding that there's no changes in coverage levels to all three of those contracts. And for was confident after shopping around that they were the best decision for us to renew with those companies.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we had Yaki Fish for that one.
Yes, all right. Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yeah. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-76, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Mutual of Omaha for the provision of life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment insurance to village employees and declaring an emergency. Also goes to Councilman Yaki.
Similar as the last ordinance, 2022-76 authorizes the mayor to enter a contract with Mutual of Omaha for life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment insurance for village employees. Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend by Councilman Yaki, seconded by Councilman Emmerman. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Move for passage.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion for passage by Councilman Yaki, and then I heard a tie. I'm not sure.
Councilman
We'll go
Richmond.
with Councilman Richmond.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, Sherry, call the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2002-27, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Medical Mutual for the provision of healthcare insurance to village employees and declaring an emergency. Councilman Yaki.
Thank you. Similar to the previous two, this 22-77 allows the mayor to enter a contract with Medical Mutual for health insurance for village employees. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend by Councilman Yaki, seconded by Councilman Emmerman. Call the roll.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
And I will move for approval.
Second.
A motion to approve by Councilman Yaki, seconded by Councilman Fish. I would add for a reminder to members of council that Prashant did attempt to bid this out to other companies and nobody would bid on us because of some significant medical events that took place amongst our employees. So we are getting stocked with a pretty significant percent.
21.7.
21.7%. It was 25 and he got them come down to 20.
Right.
So it's a big hit for us, but we have, not mentioning names and conditions, I'm aware of 2 or 3 quite significant medical events in the village. And that's the reason for that, but we did attempt to bid other companies and that we would take.
I got a question. So A couple of years ago, we switched the way we were doing the health insurance, this new method. And I imagine we might not have a choice now, but it's still coming out beneficial that we switched to that new. Okay.
And I want to say our final savings was somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000
Okay.
last year, which was significant. We're happy about that. So thank you, council, for changing that structure. And we're continuing on the scheme. So good question. I'm lost where
Give a motion in a second.
a motion and a second, Yankee, against Councilman Richmond. I believe.
Fish.
No, Tom Fish, call the roll, please.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-78, an ordinance providing additional appropriations, transferring items already appropriated and declaring an emergency. Was both Councilman Fish.
Yeah, so I did have a brief conversation with Prashant. This is just a year-end fiscal adjustments to expenditure. I think most of them are in this thing, some of it might be capital. Just to make final adjustments, move things back where they need to be. There's a few things like the service capital that they didn't use. The biggest one, 75,000, the house on the hill, was a repayment because we paid for it and then we got a grant. So now the grant will go back into the general fund. So these are just all adjustments. And then you said I have to say it in a certain way, but yeah, so we'll make sure there was an appendix A and there was a redo, the updated exhibit material that was provided before the meeting.
I think you nailed it.
Okay, so then I would make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
The motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Fish, seconded by Councilman Yankee. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yeah.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
And a motion to pass.
Second.
Motion for passage from Councilman Fish, seconded by Councilman Yankee. Do we have any discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming off the bench and her first ordinance presentation. Ordinance 2022-79. An ordinance establishing temporary appropriations for the first quarter of the fiscal year of 2023 for the village of Moreland and declaring an emergency. This one goes to Councilwoman Mrs. Jeanette Irish Glass.
So I attempted to talk to Prashant. We weren't able to communicate prior to this meeting, so I am just presenting the an ordinance establishing temporary appropriations for current and other expenditures of the village of Moreland Hills for the first quarter. Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilwoman Glass. You prefer Irish Glass or Glass when I say that? Okay. We have a motion to suspend the rules by Councilwoman Irish Glass and seconded by Councilman Fish. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
I move to pass. Motion to pass. Well, that was- Yeah.
Motion for passage from Councilwoman Irish Glass, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any discussion?
I'll just make a comment, because I did hear back, I don't know if Prashant copied Councilwoman Irish Glass or not, but just a little more color on this is every year we do this because we don't have the budget established. So we have to have a budget in place, otherwise we can't spend money for the first few months of the year. This will be adjusted and rectified when we pass the budget in March. So just add a little color.
And you'll receive lots of information for that budget in March, including a presentation from Prashant and Marcia. Who work, you know Marcia, don't you? Have you met Marcia yet?
No.
Okay. Marcia works in the back office.
Yes, the one you have the information to.
They put together a wonderful presentation. We go through all the numbers. So you'll be well versed in all things budget, and budget is approved by council. That'll happen.
Okay.
Is
That makes a
council
little more sense. Thank you for that clarification.
okay? I believe we had a motion and a second for passage.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-80, an ordinance amending section 103.01, quote, council committees and planning commission, end quote, of chapter 103 of the administrative code, quote, notification of public meetings, end quote, and amending section 121.01 of the administrative code, quote, meetings, end quote, chapter 121, quote, council rules, end quote, to authorize village boards, commissions, and other village public bodies to meet in a virtual or hybrid format, and to update notice requirements for virtual or hybrid meetings of council, village boards, commissions, and other village public bodies. Council President Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't go into detail here since this was part of our charter amendment that passed by our voters, by our residents. But this is going to give us the flexibility we have been seeking and was using during COVID to have virtual meetings, including hybrid meetings, and allow those that are virtual to vote and count as quorum. Also noted is that residents may also participate, and this could be even in the planning commission. If they had an application, they could actually present their case virtually, or residents themselves could come to a meeting such as this virtually and make comments. And I think this will allow us and just confirm that we are within our self-rule right, home rule right to conduct business. Yes, home rule right. So with that, I will make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Motion to suspend the rules by Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Yaki. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes. Move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage from Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Yaki. Any discussion? Okay, Sherry, call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-81, an ordinance approving and granting consent to the Director of the Ohio Department of Transportation authority to apply, maintain, and repair standard longitudinal pavement marking and erect regulatory warning signs at state highways inside village corporate limits, giving consent of the village for the Ohio Department of Transportation to remove snow and ice and use snow and ice control material on state highways inside the village corporate limits, and giving consent of the village for the Ohio Department of Transportation to perform maintenance and or repair on state highways inside the village corporation and declaring an emergency. This one goes to Councilman Emmerman.
We have our two state highways, 87 and 91. ODOT does the painting for the lines that go down the middle and the lines that go down the sides. We do the smaller lines like arrows and whatnot. They also do the signs for these, other than like the caution signs. Presumably also ODOT would do snow removal on these two, but it's my understanding that the village typically beats them out there, and we normally do the majority of the snow removal, despite the fact that they do some of the snow removal. And it's also my understanding that while we enter into this consent, we give them this consent, we don't pay for this service other than through our normal state taxes. So the village isn't paying ODOT for this. So with that, I move to suspend the rules.
I think one clarification, I think if we did ask to have them do snow and ice, we would have to pay for that.
We would have to pay for that, but we don't, but we typically.
We do it ourselves.
Yeah, we do it ourselves.
Well, I think I'm right on that. I think that's correct.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dave. Do you have a motion for suspending the rules?
Yes.
Seconded by Council President Spencer. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Second.
Motion for passage, Councilman, seconded by Councilman. Any discussion?
Mr. Emmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-82, an ordinance fixing the compensation of various officers and employees of the village of Moreland Hills and declaring an emergency. Council President Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think many of you know, we have by ordinance salary ranges for each of the village positions that we employ. And each year we look at a merit increase for employees, which I believe we'll be discussing after this ordinance is discussed and voted on. But the effect of this ordinance, the effect of the analysis that we saw from Prashant shows that if we were to increase in the percentage ranges that we're talking about, that some of the positions on the list would be topped out by their upper limit of the salary range. So this ordinance fixes that and widens the range slightly on a small number of positions, but important positions. For example, I don't know all, I think there are 5, but for example, 3 of them are the chief of police, the executive lieutenant, and the building official position. I believe there may be a couple other ones as well, but that's the intent of this ordinance. And with that, I will make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Motion to suspend the rules by Council President Spencer, second by Councilman Fish. Call the roll.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass, Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes. And I'll move for passage, Mayor.
Second again. Motion for passage from Council President Spencer, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any questions or discussion?
One quick question. Does it make sense to, I did double check with Prashant, and the ranges do include all of the different possible ranges that were on the spreadsheet that we got at the council committee of the whole, but does it make sense now? I understand it's not required. Does it make sense if we now talk about the percentage raise, or
No,
rather than waiting to January, or no?
No, it just postures a range. Wherever we end up in the range, they'll change the employee payment compensation forms, and they'll get that whatever we give them on the raise.
Okay, just before the budget ordinance, that's when, is that the preference as far as one to?
He wanted it for the end of December.
The pay raise decision board.
Correct.
So then we should have that discussion.
We are gonna have the discussion.
Oh, okay. I thought, Mr. Spencer, I thought you mentioned after we.
Well, the intention is to pass this first because this does not.
It doesn't impinge upon.
We can't do the other one first because we would be voting to approve money that supersedes pay raise.
Makes sense. Thank you for
And
clarifying
this,
that.
in my understanding too, on this, you are correct in your assertion that it does use the top end of the potential raises. But all that does is it affects when we look at this next year or in the future, how much we may need to change ranges based upon what we need to do to be competitive. So.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome. Where are we on this?
We have a motion in second.
We do.
Spencer and, yeah.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Ethan, are you comfortable with me starting the discussion?
Yes.
Under miscellaneous business, as an agenda item, we're going to discuss a percentage salary increase for 2023. Generally, you folks control the purse strings, and I can only give you information that I've gotten from meeting with Prashant and having an actual discussion over this with his input. And our treasurer is recommending that we give a 3% increase. I will tell you my experience throughout the county for fire and police is that 3% is typical. It's, anywhere from 2.75 to 3. Some Westlake is getting 3.25, but 3% has been kind of the golden standard that everyone's been hoping for in their contracts. So with that said, Prashant and I did meet, and it was our recommendation for 3%. Again, I'm not putting pressure on anyone here. This is up for discussion amongst you folks. And so let's have that discussion, just knowing that the treasurer has made that recommendation.
I'm happy, unless you wanted, I was gonna say, I'm happy to start. I did, again, I had one first question, because I've done a little bit of background research of my own, and I also did want to ask Prashant, which I did have occasion to do. And the question I asked him is that, you know, I understand you have a recommendation of 3%, but would you say that is a prohibition of a alternate increase? And, you know, would you say if council decided on an alternate increase, they would, you know, you would, besides being apart from your suggestion that it would be us, quote unquote, giving away the store, and he answered no. He mentioned that, you know, that was his suggestion, that the mayor said based on his research. He mentioned to me, yeah, that all around our area is where the 3% came up most, and as the mayor said, but when I looked around and checked with Mr. Google, I found a couple things, or Mr./Miss Google. I noticed the federal increase for 2023 is 4.6%. I'm seeing it from a number of different websites that corporate/business increase rates are 3 to 4%. I looked at this year. At the end of the year, they figure that inflation will have averaged 6 to 7%. Next year, it's supposed to be lower. I understand from what I've read, 3 to 4%.
Let's hope, huh?
I'm sorry?
I said, let's hope, huh?
Yeah, let's hope, right. But factoring that all in, plus, I think in relative dollars, I think from 3 to 3.5% is approximately $15,000, and that over our entire budget is a relatively small sum. And based on all of that, and the fact that we've always felt that our employees are our most important resource in the village, that I would be in favor of a 3.5% increase.
I had a question. Didn't we just do this with the police officers a couple months ago or something?
No,
That was that long ago?
we did,
There was a discussion.
we
Okay.
reorganized some of the payment structure, but that was administratively done. That wasn't something that had to be legislative. I think I may have given you an update on that in the whole 2 or 3 months ago. But we did not give them a percentage. We do it all in one fell swoop.
I did sort of the same thing Steve did, and the US average cost of living is expected to be 5.9% this year. So I don't know where you want to be. It's like you want to be the community that everybody wants to come work at because they take care of people better, you know, to your point, whereas is 3% good enough? I don't know that we would lose anybody. You guys have a feeling for any of that? You can't even know better than anybody else, but.
Well, I think if you're asking me, it's an overall package, you know. I think our healthcare is stellar is an understatement. It's stellar. I mean,
Do they pay anything for healthcare?
it's,
Or is this 100%
Sherry,
covered?
correct, I think it's like $10 or $15 a month.
For a family, 15 a pay.
So $30 a month for a family.
Yeah, just 600.
And then we have that high deductible rate up to 3,000, but we pay 2,500 of it. Village, so the maximum exposure for their family is $500, and everything after that, and $250 for an individual. Everything after that, up to the 3,000, we cut checks to pay for that, and we managed to save some money that way. So I think it's an overall package. I don't think Steve's out of line in his logic. You know, it's it's like 14,000 and change to go to 3.5. If Prashant's not gonna, you know, take the ball home and go crying.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
What was the percentage increase the last time you did it historically?
3.25 last year? I'm guessing.
Just that today.
It was over 3.
3.5.
3.5? I feel like that's high. I feel like it was 3.2. The answer is we don't know. It was in this neighborhood. It was-
That's.
I do recall, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the council voted on a higher number than Prashant had.
that's what I remember.
Yes. It was another 1/4% or so higher than, is that,
That sounds right.
that's not right?
I just don't remember the
Yeah,
specific number.
yes, and it was in the 3 something range.
Could have been 3.25.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not opposed to what Mr. Richmond's saying. I would be also okay with 3%. I know, I just read in the paper and I was looking on my phone, Chagrin Falls just did 3%. It just came out in the paper. Now, the thing about what Chagrin Falls did was rather odd though, because they also gave people a retroactive 1.4% bonus from last year's salaries. A one-time thing, which I don't understand it, but I mean, there was a reason that it happened.
So you could argue they got more.
So they really kind of, I mean, that's a one-time, so it doesn't build into their increase going forward.
Just looked, can I interject?
Yes.
He recommended 2.5, you guys voted on 3.
Yeah, so we did recommend something higher. So, I mean, I'm interested in what the other council people think, but I'm open to a 3 or slightly more. I don't think we should go below 3.
You've all gotten this, but does everybody have the cost of each step increase? David, you'd be the only one I think might not, it should have been emailed to you. I read them off the committee of the whole. So everyone's aware of the cost.
My overall thought when we talked about this last year and we were looking at 2.5 and we went to 3 is I made a point that the state was at 3%, and I think it's a fair number to always look at. It's just kind of matching what the state does. I think the state is still at 3. It might be up for negotiation again, but I believe the state is still at 3%. So I'm comfortable with 3%, but if people want to go to 3.5, I'm okay with that too. But I generally think it's not bad to just match the state, right? So I think that's a kind of an objective way of looking at it, but I would definitely be okay and not going below with the state, does for sure. But I'm okay with higher as well.
Councilman Yankee, any comment?
Dave, I agree with you. I mean, 3 is the baseline. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Based on my interaction with village employees, we've got a great group here. Number safest, not just the police, but we're perennially the safest, municipality in Cuyahoga County. I mean, that's something. Service department's great, always responsive. Does a good job. I always know when it's snowing when I hit Moreland Hills because our roads are plowed. And some other municipalities are not dealing with that. The support, again, the service department's provided the parks, which I'm involved in a lot. It's just great. If 3.5, if people think that's a reach, 3.25, I think would also be appropriate to put us over the state, but not significantly. I also agree with Steve, and you look at the big picture, and 14,000 plus, isn't overall significant in the overall village budget. But I think that the perception, hey, we're getting more in the state. I mean, I know when I come up for my annual review every year, whatever that percentage is, if it's a little more, then I appreciate it better.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I would just say that I agree with almost all the comments. I think it's important to value our employees. And I think part of that is, by showing them that through the salary approval. I think the 3 or the 3.25, both are reasonable because they're in line with the state and in line with competitive local surrounding areas. And we're dealing with a time when inflation hasn't gone this high in a really long time. So I think that really needs to be taken into consideration in this decision.
Yeah, just a couple of real quick factors. One is, regarding the dollars and cents, and I'm sure other employees as well, in other villages or cities, do this as well, but I think ours exceptionally well, find grants, find ways to do more for less, find ways to budget appropriately, find ways to do work in-house themselves in order to save money from going out to different contracts. And also, while I doubt anybody, as Mr. Fish mentioned, would lead one way or the other, there has had been morale / folks going other places in the past. So I think it's a legitimate factor to add to the mix of factors when we look at this kind of thing.
Mayor, is it something, I think I've heard everybody, would the process be for someone to make a motion?
I believe somebody would need to make a motion and then we would vote on it just like anything else, and then we would forward that to Prashant.
Okay, I guess I'll try this out, and if you guys can debate or not. We've heard some good discussion here. I think that we've discussed somewhere between 3% and 3.5%. And hearing all that, I think if we compromise right in the middle of that at 3.25%, I think it's higher than the recommendation, higher than the state and our neighboring villages. But it isn't all the way up at the top, and I think employees would appreciate it. So I'll make a motion to increase the salaries for our employees 3.5%.
3.5 or 3.
Excuse me, 3.25%. Sorry. Apologies. Say it all.
You have a motion for 3.25% pay rate, seconded by Councilman Fish.
Discussion, yes. We got to call.
Suspend the rules on that.
No, we're ready to talk.
Any discussion or concern?
Okay.
Feel that?
Okay, Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
So I like how all the conversation, well, civil, it's always civil, but I always like how you're looking at having the backs of the employees. They deserve it. They're outstanding employees. I don't want to be the Grinch and say I was told them strong at 3%. I'm not with the treasurer. That was his recommendation. I think 3.25 is very fair and a good decision on your end. So we'll move with that and let Prashant know, and he'll factor that in.
Great.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm sure says.
Thank you.
I'm sure more than any of us.
Yeah, I know.
Not 4.
Yeah.
Do we have any other miscellaneous discussion?
Yeah, just one comment. I think Sherry sent out an email. We will conduct an organizational meeting. I'm sure we'll have an official notice, but on January 4th. So that should be our next meeting. But I look forward to seeing, I think, all of you on Sunday. And very excited to host you guys. Just one comment on parking. I was going to send out an email, but I don't know if I tell you guys it's probably good enough. I think most of you know where I live. My driveway, you can't park on Jackson Road technically. I'm sure maybe we get some dispensation, but the rules are you're not supposed to park on Jackson Road. I don't think it'll be snowing. But my neighbors to either side, one side is the Thompsons, who Bill knows, and the other side is the Kolakowskis. They have said we can use their driveways for overflow. Just on the Kolakowski side, he's a little particular, so park in a circle if you use that side, so he could still get out of his garage if he had to, because he has a big circle in front. Just leave him access.
Your garage if we get there.
That's fine. You can block mine all you want.
Front yard?
You might not get back out of it.
You have a charging station. Thank you for hosting that. That's appreciated.
Yep, you're welcome. Looking forward to it.
So if there's no other miscellaneous discussion, we'd be looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn by Councilman Mackey, second by Councilman Fish.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Iris Glass, Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
Go too bad.
Yeah, you nailed it.
lot of legislation.
You can bear me,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And when there's an escalation in
Yeah.